good day already. I'm happy to get out of the house.
Dude, I've been cooped up for so long. Yeah, something bad was going to happen, so I had to get out.
I mean, honestly, it hasn't been much different for me, but what I've really been jonesing to do is get out and put these bikes back to back, you know, do a little bit of a comparison, so.
Yeah, and so far, we have a more durable dirt bike and a more streetable dirt bike.
Yeah, I think that's pretty, I mean, even evident by the tires and the right up here on this, was just floating the whole time on the freeway.
Yeah, nice on the freeway.
Yeah.
Right.
Not so nice once we got out here, but I mean, we have these two, but it'd be nice to have, you know, it's not the entire category, but you know, when's the Tenere 700 going to be available for us to test? I still don't know, but the Tiger,
the Triumph,
900 Rally Pro would be awesome against these two, because it's the adventure model. What is this? Was that
what I thought it was?
I don't know.
He's coming back.
Okay. Yeah.
Gentlemen.
How's it going?
What's up?
Fellas, good to see some riders out here. Whew. Perfect day for it, too.
Oh my God, it's Eric Bostrom.
Yeah.
Right,
What's
the
up,
Tiger.
Let's do some riding. You guys want to check this thing out?
I would love to. We were just talking about how we had half of the middleweight adventure bikes out here, and you show up on one of the other bikes.
Lucky us.
How convenient.
Good timing. I'm curious to check out these two bikes too.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about them, so
right on.
Think you guys are going to be pretty stoked. This thing's pretty nimble.
Cool. Well, I'd love to let you have a go at these bikes too and get your feedback on it.
All
I'm
right.
sure the readers and whatnot would appreciate it too.
Let's do it.
Right on.
Here we go.
I'd love to have a go at that one. You should take the BMW. I think you'll really dig it.
Good, big dog.
You can just stay on the KTM. That's fine.
Tom, I don't know why you're raising your hands like you're getting the short end of the deal. Aw.
Good.
Yeah, well, Eric, it was crazy, you know, seeing you out on the trail as a completely random happenstance. So I'm glad we could get together on this Zoom call, given the pandemic and the quarantines and whatnot. But at least we had a chance to ride them back to back. What do you think of the Tiger, since that's the one you showed up on?
Yeah, it is rad to see you guys. The Tiger it's a really nice intermediate package. And I think for adventure in general, you really want to figure out kind of what sort of adventure is going to be your regular adventure, right? So if you're doing more street heavy, more dirt heavy, it's really going to dictate which bike you end up buying, because that's just the way they lean. And I think that the Triumph was really impressive. It was dirt bowl, really nice on the street. I mean, if I were to give it a lean, I would say it's a great bike for doing adventurous street rides, some mixed terrain, and certainly you can go on fire roads all day long on the thing, and it's a lot of fun. The motor has a really nice feel and kind of picks up with a lot of torque. And then on the road, you'll notice it sort of peters out a little bit. The handling on it's a very forgiving platform, and I'd say very stable platform. When you get into a little bit more technical riding, or maybe some big G outs, you're going to run out of suspension on the thing. It ends up being a little soft for doing aggressive dirt riding. But
yeah,
I think
the bike's 503 pounds, so that, you got to be realistic with what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to be realistic. And the other thing is you got to fit that sweet spot for the majority of people, right? And I think the manufacturer recognizes that for the most part, this motorcycle is probably going to be a street bike, and it can certainly do dirt roads, but you're not out jumping it and doing trails and all this stuff. So I think they really found a sweet spot with the bike.
Yeah, and I think, Tom had a little bit more of a extended twisty run on the Tiger after our dirt portion, so can probably talk a little bit more to its street prowess.
Between its engine, its chassis package, and its braking, I mean, it's a pretty formidable motorcycle. I'd be torn. I love that 790 engine in the KTM. I think that thing is awesome on the street and in the dirt. It does well in both arenas. The Triumph, I mean, I would agree with Eric. It leans a little bit more on the street side, but if you put the right tires on that thing, it'd be a pretty comparable motorcycle off-road. And in my opinion, it would probably be the best all around of the group that we had, because you could ride that thing 200 miles on the street to ride 100 miles of dirt and be completely great with it. Yeah, KTM, I'd ride that 50 miles on the street and 200 miles in the dirt, right? I mean, it's just kind of the way it's set up. So, but, the Triumph, again, compared to the other ones, it has those creature comforts, heated grip, heated seat. I mean, you could seriously, take this out in some cold, weather and rainy weather, whatnot, ride it for a while. It's got good wind protection. Like I said, the seating is pretty comfortable. It does lean you forward a little bit. Almost I kind of felt like I was getting on a sport bike with that one compared to the other two. They're pretty much, straight up and down seating positions like most adventure bikes, but it does really well as far as just handling, twisty pavement.
I do feel like the Tiger is kind of in between. And for me, the BMW is probably the most comfortable on the freeway, just droning freeway miles.
I couldn't agree more that on the street, it's just a big plush ride, just really, and I shouldn't say big because on that medium it wasn't big at all. But certainly if you're on, fire road that was narrowing in on a single track, you'd run out of room real quick on the GS.
The GSA that we got was almost devoid of everything. And one of those things that you get with the Select and the premium packages from BMW is an extra ride mode called Enduro Pro. And we didn't have that. So when we all talked about when we hit it into Enduro, it felt really sluggish,
Yeah.
And I'm really not sure why that mode's not on there, because from what I was looking at on BMW's presentation from the F850 launch, Dynamic and Enduro Pro are included together. So I'm going to do a little bit of research with the folks at BMW, and we'll have that in the write-up on motorcycle.com. But it was pretty devoid of quick shifters, and kind of comparing it to the Tiger premium package on the F850 GSA, that would put you more in line with all of the stuff that you get with the Tiger: cruise control, quick shifter, up and down, all the ride modes, all the electronics and whatnot, and the connectivity, like Bluetooth connectivity with your phone, and even GoPro on the Tiger. That would put you up around 17.5 for the BMW to kind of level it out.
Now, question though, if with the other model that you're talking about, Ryan, what does that change in the suspension?
It keeps the front fork at, it's just a 43 mil, upside down fork with no adjustment, unfortunately.
Okay, so you're going up to 17.5 on the BMW without any adjustability in the front suspension, which is one of its biggest weak points, I would say, on the whole motorcycle, because outside of just some plush freeway cruising, that thing isn't stiff enough for aggressive, pavement riding, let alone dirt riding. Now, barring what I saw Eric do on that bike the other day, that doesn't count, We're not all retired pro racers here, okay? So
they felt the shockwave in Ridgecrest from my landing.
When you bottomed out the fork.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, you're adding over the standard F850 GS, you're adding 2 more gallons of gas, so you're adding all that weight, and the suspension in the front is the same. So obviously that's going to make a difference in the handling and whatnot with all that weight up front, because they used to, the previous model, I guess it would have been the 2018 model in back, actually had the gas tank under the seat. And so the GSA model had it under the seat as well. It was just really wide. Now all of that's up front. So the fork is having to compensate with all that. And it feels like it's the same spring rate. And they actually added an inch of travel, but it's still super plush. But with the premium package, you do get an electronic shock. But again, that's not really solving where I think we all saw the issue with the extra weight in the front of that bike.
To Eric's point, though, it is a big bike. I mean, it seems, wide. That thing it seems almost as wide as a GS 1200, right? I mean, it's a big, wide area up front, and it's a little intimidating, especially, on a trail. I'm sure you would get used to it if you owned it and was riding it, but that suspension, especially the tires that were on it, I never felt comfortable with that at all. Even thinking if this had better tires, it's still 100 pounds more than what that KTM weighs.
Yeah. So when we weighed everything, the GSA was 552 pounds, the Tiger was 503, and the KTM was 467.
Wow.
So, there's basically a 50-pound gap between all three of these bikes. The sheer girth of the GSA's presence on the trail, and just looking down at it just looked massive from the front. And what's interesting is I took off half of that plastic to do a dyno run on that bike, and there's nothing under there. So it's really just widening out the presence of the bike.
It's amazing what your sight does for perceiving the handling to be. And when we get on a big bike, it can be a nimble, quick handling thing, but just judging it by sight, your mind is already like, okay, it's a big platform and it's going to be sluggish. But I think the upside of the GS is just how smooth the motor is and what a comfortable ride. Brakes work great, on the street. The ABS not so great in the dirt. And so I think leans towards the question, what kind of riding are you going to be doing? And if the majority of it is street, I think that it really becomes a player.
Like, I would love to just ride that thing across the country, if I wasn't planning on hitting every twisty bit of road and just throwing in some fire roads and stuff like that. It'd be great. I mean, I like the motor, when you have it in dynamic mode, you're getting that full crisp throttle response, the motor's smooth. It's a lot of fun to ride, but I think the suspension is what's going to kind of let you down a little bit first if you start pushing it, and that's off-road or on-road.
Agreed.
Maybe we'll just jump to the other side of the spectrum and talk about the KTM, because we haven't talked about it much, and it's like, riding a dirt bike off-road.
Yeah, that really nails it. We have the whole spectrum here, and of course the Triumph being in the middle, and the KTM is a much more aggressive geometry. The moment you get on it, it just feels really nimble. And when I had jumped off of this very stable Triumph platform onto the KTM, I was like, wow, is this almost like too unstable? It wasn't. It just took me a minute to actually get back into, I'm riding a dirt bike here. The faster I rode the KTM in the dirt, the more it said, give me more. And that was pretty impressive. I was surprised at how much I could actually ride the thing like a proper dirt bike on this, fairly slick, decomposed granite surface. And not just like totally blow through the corner. It was like I was in control. I was able to get through like rain ruts and G outs and not bottom out suspension, whereas both the other bike, we bottomed them out in that same scenario. The motor was too aggressive when I first got into the dirt on the KTM, and the moment we put on the off-road package, it just tamed it right down, and that was really, really nice.
I think the advantage though that you get with the handling, with it keeping the weight so low on that bike, and that new engine that they put in the 790 and the Duke and this bike, it's so small and compact that it carries its weight so well. And it's 467 versus these other bikes. It is light, but it feels even lighter because all that weight's on really low to the ground. And if you have to pick it up, that helps with that too. All the weight's lower.
The only thing is, like when you're riding on the road going kind of fast, it definitely has a little bit more of a single kind of feel where you pick up a little bit of, like that vibration. And much to Tom's point, like 50 miles on the street, 200 miles in the dirt all day long, right? But I could definitely see over a long period, let's say a long straight section of road, that little bit of single like vibration through the handlebars. It would not be as comfortable as the BMW and the Triumph. But that being said, knowing the kind of riding I like to do and sort of the adventure I prefer to get on, like, it's kind of a no-brainer for me to go to the KTM because I'll look at a map, try to figure out how little pavement I can put between point A and point B.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, as far as suspension goes, the KTM, I mean, that Explorer fork and Explorer PDS shock is what comes off of their EXC line. You know, they're basically dirt bikes with turn signals. So that stuff has been well developed by WP, and the new Showa stuff that's on the new Tiger 900 Rally Pro, it's good, but honestly, I kind of felt like it was a little harsh in the first bit of the stroke, and then you kind of end up blowing through it. And I think you probably noticed that, Eric, on some of those faster sections, and when you're maybe jumping over one of those crests right before that turn, that I think once you get into it, you kind of blow through it.
I agree. That was a perfect assessment of the fork. A little bit slow initially, and then you kind of blow through it with speed. The KTM, I think, the harder you rode it, the more it really did try to give you more like feedback. And so that's where, you know, I think if Triumph could get it together, and BMW as well, and have some kind of package where the suspension would support some aggressive riding to kind of, you know, I guess serve riders like us, right, that are going to go out there and push the bikes pretty hard. And I think there's a lot of us out there. I totally think that you can get away, like you could ride up to some, you know, you could do some pretty aggressive riding on the Triumph. Like you could get way out there in the, you know, whether it's Death Valley or whatever, and or Monument in Utah, and get some really cool fire roads on. Not that you couldn't on any three of these platforms, but I think that one would get you there on the freeway, because you'd probably end up spending a great deal of time on the freeway to get there, perhaps, and then you would have the ability to do some pretty cool desert riding or you know, alpine riding when you're there.
If they all had suspension that worked as well and was damped as well as what WP has on the 790 Adventure R, they'd all be a lot closer and a lot, you know, more fun for guys that are really going to push it off road. I mean, I'm sure when the Tenere 700 gets here, there's going to be a lot of people jumping on that, because the point's like $10,000 compared to, you know, what we have here. So you have a little bit more money in your budget to maybe throw it towards just getting a full suspension upgrade front and rear. So that'll be cool once we can get a hold of one of those and maybe put proper tires on all four bikes and go out and do an actual adventure after the quarantine blows by and we have some time to really put them all back to back on the same footing. The electronics package, I think, on all three it's pretty high tech. I think what I enjoyed the most on the KTM, and when I was at the introduction to this, I used it the entire day, was kind of setting it into rally mode. So, you know, you've got your different ride modes, but when you put it into rally mode, you can adjust the throttle response. So you can set it rally, which is, you know, really sharp, crisp throttle, street, which is a little bit less, and then off-road, which is even a little bit less. And then you can also, on the fly, adjust the traction control from 1 to 9. So you can just be, you know, you get into a really rocky section, kick it up a little bit so you're not spinning up the rear wheel all the time, get into the sand, drop it to 1, you know, and you can do all that on the fly. I think one of the things that was a bit annoying for the Triumph was anytime that you turn the bike off, or you had to go back to, because it will revert to a road mode, and it will definitely revert to something with ABS because it's, you know, a legal issue. But the nice thing about that is if you kind of were off the bike for a minute and you got back on and you're off road and you're planning on just getting right back into it, it gives you a big warning sign that says, reverting into road mode, do you want to go back to off-road pro, whichever one you had it in. And so it's kind of a quick button push and it takes you back to the previous setting.
Yeah, it was really incredible how advanced the parameters were for everything from traction control to maps. I mean, the electronics give you the ability to ride more aggressive terrain, right? So, and with the KTM in particular, the way you could scroll through, that just, it really gives you an edge, especially if you're in sketchy stuff where you're like, okay, maybe I'm pushing my limits here a little bit. You can just continue to tame it down.
I mean, my God, full color, big Tesla-sized screens that they had. I mean, you know, your vision could be pretty bad and still make out pretty much everything on that BMW screen. And then, you know, kudos to Triumph for designing a pretty futuristic screen, you know, with its RPM gauge coming at you in this kind of 3D tunnel. And, you know, it's a little something to get used to, but I mean, I liked it.
I think out of the three, the Tiger was probably the easiest to jump on and kind of figure out pretty quickly with the joystick that it has and the way you scroll through everything. And yeah, it's cool that they offer actually 4 different styles of dash, you know, 3 kind of that are similar and then 1 that's completely different, just depending on how you like to take in your information, which the other 2 don't really do that. You just scroll through the menus that, you know, the way they give it to you. One of the first upgrades I think I would do is put better handguards on these if you're planning on doing a lot of off-roading.
Yeah. They're probably better at protecting the wind.
Yeah, definitely. And then I guess probably, I don't know, kind of weak parts for all of them is going to be the protection underneath. You know, you got the BMW that's so much weight and the suspension that you can really go through pretty quickly. And then with the KTM, you know, you have the gas tank kind of slung down pretty low and you have a skid plate there, which it's probably the most robust out of these 3. But the Tiger's is almost laughable. I just pushing, I had it in my driveway the other day and I was just pushing on it with my foot and it just gives so easily that I can't imagine it actually protecting any. I mean, it'll stop little dings from rocks flipping up and hitting your exhaust, but it's not gonna, you know, if you case it, it's gonna smash everything.
You're going to want to know your bike and its vulnerabilities and try to figure out a workaround in case you do get stuck out there.
The ride back through Bouquet Canyon, I was on the Triumph, and you know, it's a pretty flowing road, so there wasn't a lot of really hard braking. There were some tighter sections before that. Even actually some of the photo shoots we were going around, I was carrying a lot more speed through that just because, and braking harder in the corners. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was, you know, an excellent, you know, stopping power, but the feedback, you know, coming through the bar and everything. I mean, it was a bike that you wouldn't mind taking on a long road ride, especially an aggressive one through a twisty section like that, you know.
I can't say enough for having good brakes on a motorcycle. I just hate bikes that don't have good brakes, so that was nice.
I'd rather have a touch your brake off-road and know that it's really good on-road too and just adapt off-road.
The KTM, we struggled with front brake feel, and we never got a proper test on it. So
it was a good ride. Nice. Thanks for inviting me along, Ryan. Eric, it was a pleasure riding with you. That's awesome. And hopefully, yeah, we get to do it again someday.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that big adventure where I might torture you guys just a little bit more. So until then, see you on the screen, but look forward to seeing you in person soon.
This was a little bit of an exercise that, you know, manufacturers give us your adventure models, your rally models, your R models, whatever. And as they come off the showroom floor, you know, this is how it sits. The tires made a huge difference off-road, obviously. But, you know, it's interesting just to see, you know, what each manufacturer puts an emphasis on with these models. And I think coming up, hopefully sooner than later, within a couple months, we'll have the Tenere 700 and we'll get all 3 of these bikes back, get them on the same tires, get the same tires on the Tenere 700, and hopefully we have a little more leeway where we can actually leave our houses and maybe record this in person next time, but actually go out and do a, you know, proper adventure, do some camping, something like that. Thanks, guys. Eric, again, so random running into you there on the trail with the exact bike you're missing. Yeah, so thanks again for coming out and showing what, in the right hands, these bikes are totally capable of doing. But yeah, so we'll have the whole write-up, dyno charts, everything up at motorcycle.com. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you'll tune in for the next segment where we have all 4 bikes.
Just don't have the right product in for this shot, okay?
So like 2 hands, helmet off, and then action.
Alice. No, that sucked. We gotta do that again. I'm terrible.
Do one more. But that was, you got the idea right. That was,
Okay.
Yeah.
In character. Fellas, good to see some riders out here.
Yeah.
Nailed it. Okay.